This is Jason Anderson. I am calling this regular town council meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 12th. Ms. Wakefield, would you lead us in prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this day. I want to thank you for the gorgeous weather that you've given us and the beautiful seasons that we get to experience, Lord. Give us wisdom as we go about the town's business tonight, and we ask this in your name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of
United States of America,
to the republic
to
for which stands
one nation, under
God, indivisible, with liberty and
liberty,
justice for all.
justice for all.
For roll call purposes, all council members are in attendance. Mr. Cottula and Ms. George are attending virtually. Mr. LaPrade is absent.
Mr.
And
Chair.
Mr. Wood is absent with notification.
Actually, Mr. Wood is trying to log on now, so he's in the process of joining us virtually.
Okay. Thank you. My understanding he wasn't going to make it.
He's attempting to.
Okay. Moving on, next item up on the agenda is item 5, adoptions of minutes from previous meetings. 5A, special town council meeting September 7th, 2021. 5B, regular town council meeting September 14th, 2021. Can I get a motion to adopt these minutes?
So moved.
The motion has been made by Ms. Wakefield, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on to item 6, presentations, proclamations, and declarations.
Yes.
Yes, we've audio tested her. She can hear us, and she's been able to converse with us.
Ms. George, are you still there with us, just to verify?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And I heard Mr. Cottula, so I know he's on. So item
Yes,
6,
I'm here.
excuse me?
I was just saying, yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Item 6A, proclamation recognizing October 2021 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas breast cancer is the second most diagnosed form of cancer in women in the United States and is expected to be detected in 1 out of 8 women in America every year. And whereas early detection is vital to ensure the most effective diagnosis and treatment possible and can save lives. And whereas it is vital to meet with your physician and discuss your individual risk, family history, other common risk factors, preventive care, and regular screenings. And whereas researchers, scientists, numerous nonprofit organizations, and breast cancer survivors are dedicated to discovering the cure for breast cancer and providing education about breast cancer. Today, there is a 90% 5-year survival rate. And whereas all breast cancer survivors should be recognized for their determination and courage and acknowledge that these survivors give us hope for a better future for those affected by the disease. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that the month of October hereby be recognized as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And be it further proclaimed that all citizens learn the facts about breast cancer and, along with practicing a healthy lifestyle, obtain regular breast cancer screenings. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killenly, Connecticut, this 12th day of October 2001. Item 6B, proclamation recognizing October 2021 as National Bully Prevention Awareness Month. Whereas bullying is physical, verbal, sexual, and emotional harm or intimidation intentionally directed at a person or a group of people. And whereas bullying occurs in schools, playgrounds, neighborhoods, and through technology such as the internet and cell phones, often referred to as cyberbullying. And whereas 28% of students in grades 6 through 12 experience bullying, a higher percentage of male students are physically bullied, where female students have a higher percentage of being subject to rumors and exclusion from activities. 70.6% of young people have witnessed bullying. 16% of high school students were electronically bullied in the past year, and 55.2% of LGBTQ students experience cyberbullying, and 10% of the dropout student rate is due to repetitive bullying. And whereas targets of bullying are more likely to acquire physical, emotional, and learning problems, and students who were repeatedly bullied often fear such activities like riding the bus, going to school, and attending community events. And whereas children who bully are at a greater risk of engaging in more serious violent behaviors, in contrast to the children who witness bullying, often feel less secure and more fearful and are intimidated. And whereas National Bullying Prevention Awareness Month is a month-long observance to educate and raise awareness about bullying, which is something everyone can do every day, such as address it in our schools, create a safe, supportive learning environment, talk about bullying at home, support your community, and by asking for help. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that the month of October hereby be recognized as National Bully Prevention Awareness Month, which further commits to support the safety of our children and our community. Be it further proclaimed that all citizens are encouraged to unite against bullying and to share the message that no one should be bullied. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killenly, Connecticut, this 12th day of October 2021. At this time, we'll move on to item 7, unfinished business for town meeting action. I believe we have none at this time. So we'll move on further to item 8, citizens' statement and petition. Pursuant to the Town Council Rules of Procedure, Article 4, Section 2, all presentations by citizens shall be limited to an aggregate of 45 minutes, and each citizen's presentation shall not exceed 5 minutes unless otherwise indicated by a majority vote of the council. Public comment can be emailed to publiccomment@killenlyct.gov or mailed to the Town of Killenly, 172 Main Street, Killenly, Connecticut, 06239, on or before the meeting. All written public comment must be received prior to 2 p.m. the day of the meeting. Written public comment will be posted on the town's website, www.killenlyct.gov. Ms. Caloria, did we have any public comment submitted?
No written public comment was submitted via the email for this meeting.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open up anyone who wants to make any public comment. Please come forward to the podium. State your name and address, please.
Adam Reynolds, 5 Fantasy Road. Okay, so at this time, we know that the town council is majority one side. So at this point, basically, your Republican Party owns the town. You guys can meet outside this, come up with a game plan, execute it, call all of your constituents, send an email in saying that you agree with what is going to happen, what's on your agenda, and vote on it, and make it look like you're doing the town's business. I believe at some point, there should be at least 3, if not 4, on the other side of the council. So at that point, something can be brought up, if it doesn't agree with your agenda, to be discussed. That's why I'm running in District 3. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment?
John Saratopoulos, 37 Tongue City Road in Killenly. I think there's such a thing as minimum requirement. I don't know if this meets it or not. That used to be the standard. But I'm here tonight because I'm really disturbed, okay? This council, a couple of months ago, took a stand on the Second Amendment rights. You know, why, I still don't understand it. Maybe that deals with this bullying thing that you spoke about this evening. You know, so I think it's a little hypocritical that you support the Second Amendment right, sticking it right out there, and then you support something that says you're not gonna bully, you know? And when I heard what went on that evening and how I think everybody except for one voted for it, at that time I was considering running for the council again as an independent. I don't know how far that would have gone, but at that moment I said, no, I am not gonna get involved with the town council. Then we've got the issue of no vaccines. Everybody's running around, you know. And I hear another thing about breast cancer. You know, I'm just tying this in here, what I heard this evening, where you're taking a stand at breast cancer. Follow the science, you know, follow the experts. Where are the experts with vaccinations? Or, you know, maybe Trump's influence is too great in that particular area, not to follow the science and the medical community. So, to say the least, I'm a little embarrassed at this council. I'm embarrassed for the town of Killenly. I've lived here all my life, 83 years, okay? Never seen anything like this. On Twilliger Road, I drive by a residence and I see a big sign, F-U-C-K, Biden. I listened to the radio today and I was shocked. Nazi party, Nazism, concerning our governor of the state of Connecticut. It's an embarrassment, all right? That's our representative, okay? You know, Davis Park over there, I think there's 23 names killed during the Second World War. My brother's one of them. I had another brother that was an attorney here. The whole town knew him. He was a POW for 3 months, escaped, all right? Nazism. And we've got people here playing politics, accusing people of being Nazis. And we've got a town council jumping in with the Second Amendment bull. You know, maybe just like what they were saying on both sides during the Second World War, God is on my side. I'm gonna tell you, you guys had better take a look in the mirror and come to your senses. They say all politics are local. That's not the case here in Killenly, from what I'm saying. You people have made it your business to involve this community in national politics, if you can call it that. We had a president voted out of office and he's still running around the country claiming that he's the president and yelling all kinds of nonsense where people don't want to get vaccinated. People are nonconformists. It's an embarrassment. I'm not even going to say thank you because I almost feel like I'm forcing myself up here to make these statements. Good night.
Thank you. Is there any further comment?
Michael Yuko, 20 John Street. I just said more to the people out listening than to the council is that you have the opportunity to vote one way or the other on the community center, and I'm hoping in November that you come out and vote and just don't ignore it. If you want it, come vote yes. If you don't want it for whatever reason, vote no. It's your decision, it's your tax dollars, so please come out and vote. Thank you.
And sir, what was your address?
20 John Street.
20 John Street. Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Last call for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item on the agenda is council staff and council and staff comments. In response to Mr. Sarantopoulos' comment about minimum requirement as far as council members, the composition of the council does fulfill minimum representation, minority representation requirements, due to the fact that we have the 5 individual voting districts with individual council members, and then the 4 at-large. So that does fulfill the requirements for minority representation.
Just for clarification purposes, the council is actually exempt from minority representation because we have district voting. So it's truly just exempt from minority it's not fulfilling it, it's really
That's-
just exempt from it.
Thank you for
Because
that
there is an
clarification.
in-district vote. So just for clarification purposes, I apologize, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. And also, in regards to Mr. Sarantopoulos, one of his comments, the Killenly Town Council has taken no position promoting or against vaccinations. So, as far as you're concerned over the comments of vaccinations, the council has not taken a position one way or another on that. And in regards to the resolution supporting the Second Amendment, you had made the comment in regards to how can we support anti-bullying and support the Second Amendment at the same time. Part of the Second Amendment, in my interpretation, is to be able to protect oneself. And I don't see how, by supporting the U.S. Constitution and the state Constitution and supporting the Second Amendment, how that in any way would indicate that we support bullying, because this council absolutely does not support bullying. Coming from myself, who was all through, from elementary school all through high school, I was bullied. So to say that supporting the Second Amendment means we support bullying, I cannot see how you could possibly connect those two. In regards to the last comment Michael made regarding the community center, we do encourage everyone to come out and vote. This is a project for the town. This is a project that is voted on by the people. It is the voters who have the final say as to whether this project goes forward or not. The town council doesn't have the authority to just rubber stamp something and push it through. And finally, the last comment I have in regards to Mr. Reynolds' comment of concerns over single-party control. I will say this is not the first time, especially in recent history, where the town council has been comprised of a supermajority of one party. If you look back 2 cycles, as Mr. Grandelski can attest to, the 2015 to 2017 town council consisted of 7 Democrats, 1 Republican, and 1 independent. It isn't an unheard of thing for there being a supermajority. So as far as my comments on that were brought up by the public, that's all I have. I will turn over to other council members if anyone else has any comments. I believe Mr. Grandelski was first.
With respect to Mike Yuko's comments, it's up to the public to come out and vote. There we go. As far as Mike Yuko's comments about voting for the community center, it's up to the people to support or not support the issues, but they have to come out and vote. If they don't come out and vote, and then they complain about it later on, it's kind of not acceptable. But if you feel one way or another, regardless how you feel, we should vote. And the same goes for the regular election that's coming up. You have to get out and vote and participate. And if you don't, it's too bad. If the outcome doesn't come the way you want it to, you didn't participate, and shame on you.
Mr. Lee.
The comment about party control, I really don't like that perspective. This is my first time on the council. It's my last time on the council. I'm not running for re-election. I didn't know that the town had so much politics involved with it, but there's so many people that see things as blue or red. That's not the business of the town council. Most of the things that we take up for topics has nothing to do with political politics. And those that have those glasses on, that see it that way, I just disagree. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barclay? Microphone?
Another comment in regards to Adam Reynolds. We're elected officials, so we were elected by the town.
5 you weren't.
Excuse me, sir. Public comment period is over.
That's what I was.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda. Next item up is item 10, appointments to boards and commissions. Mr. McDonald applied for appointment to the Conservation Commission. There are alternate member positions available currently. The alternate terms run for 2 years. The term would run from November 2020 to October of 2022. Is one term that's available. The second term available would run from October of 2021 to November of 2023. My opinion is I would like to see the appointment be for the term that runs from October 2021 to November of 2023. That way, with him just starting, he doesn't have to come forward in another year for reappointment. He can actually serve the 2 years, which is the normal length of the term, before he has to come back for reappointment. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to appoint Christopher McDonald to the Conservation Commission as an alternate member for a term that would run from October 2021 through November of 2023.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion has been made by Mr. Grandelsky, seconded by Mr. Lee. I will open up for discussion, comments. I am always glad to see people coming forward, looking to serve their communities, especially conservation. With it being a volunteer position, it has to take some dedication from someone who's really committed to trying to serve their community and give back. And that is, there is nothing better, in my opinion, than someone who gives of themselves to help others and help their community.
If I may, Chairman, I just want to double check. Ray, I see that you just joined the meeting. I just want to check your audio.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So it is 7:25, and Mr. Wood has joined the meeting. At this time, any more comments from council? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to item 11, reports from liaisons. We do not have a Board of Ed liaison, but we do have the Borough Council liaison. Ms. LaBerge, if you could come forward, please.
Good evening. So the water rate, we didn't hear from Connecticut Water, but we did get the latest bill. And at the top, it did say that our rate had been changed according to the Pure vote, and this looks like it is a 40% reduction. So that is very good for us. For the sidewalk grinding, and for next year, we're going to look at a map, and we're going to probably be looking at the streets, as they said, on the other side of the river, which would be like Charlotte, Orange, in that section there is what we're going to look on for next year. So most of the IT work, from what I understand, has been completed. They did put in some extra wiring in case they wanted modems or Wi-Fi in a couple of rooms in the firehouse. We figured why we're doing it, just get it done all at once. The only thing we're waiting for, and I asked Miguel for a description of what this was, and I kind There's some kind of device that still has to be added for the state alert system that we haven't gotten in yet. So we're waiting for that, and the council did agree to the contracts from the town, so we are hoping that you will vote in favor of the resolution before you tonight. Then we had a discussion on how to use the American Rescue Plan, and actually a couple ideas came up for the firehouse. And talking about that, there have been a number of false alarm calls that we had gotten at the Mills apartment on Maple Street. So what we did find out is that we can ask the fire marshal to come out and check. Well, after 2 or 3 visits, the fire marshal can start charging them for his visits. So we're hoping that that will stop the monthly false alarm calls. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to item 12 on the agenda, discussion acceptance of monthly budget reports. 12A, summary report on general fund appropriations for town government. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
So
I'll make
moved.
that motion.
Motion has been made by Ms. Wakefield, seconded by Mr. Grandelski. Discussion. Any discussion regarding this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 12B, system object based on adjusted budget for the Board of Education. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
I'll make that motion to adopt it.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made by Mr. Lee, seconded by Ms. Wakefield. Discussion. I do understand we don't have a Board of Ed liaison. Any questions I can bring to the Board of Ed when I go to the Board of Ed meeting as a liaison?
I have a question, in regards to the, on page 3, the technology-related repair and maintenance services, of over $45,000. And my question is, aren't the students held accountable for the damage to their laptops? Because it said prior to COVID, these expenses were partially offset with student user fees. That's a lot of money there. And,
I will pose that question to them.
And we also had asked for, in February, several times for clarification on their budgets. I'd like to see more of a breakdown. For example, when they have field trips, what school, what grade, in specific amounts. And still, there's no clarification on the salaries for the, I think it should be broken down by schools for the teachers and the paras, to give us a better idea of.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Anything you would like me to bring forward to the BOE? Seeing none? Ms. Wakefield.
So I was looking at their bottom line, for their surplus. Are they planning on asking for the cap to be expanded for their non-lapsing?
I have not received a request from the BOE, and town
I haven't
managers
received
indicated
anything
so.
either, so I don't know that they've had that conversation at the BOE level.
Do you know, were we expecting this much surplus in the school budget? It seems like it was, probably would have been germane when we talked about this past year's budget. This was kind of a surprise, that much money left over, plus all the inflows that they're getting from the state. And they still needed to have an increase over what we had recommended. I'm a little confused.
Just for clarification on that, this bottom line, this is for the 2020 to 2021 budget, which is not the budget that just got passed this year. This was the budget that was passed back in 2020. And Ms. Caloria, can you speak to what the budget increase was? That was for the current fiscal year we're in, was the $800,000 increase on top of what the
It was a fairly minimal increase from the previous fiscal year to that fiscal year. And so fiscal year 1920 to fiscal year 2021, I had to get my years right. It was only roughly about I want to say it was about $150,000, $160,000 was the increase in that. I think what I understood your question, Mr. Lee, to be is that by having that level of a remaining balance from that budget coming into this current fiscal year, correct? So that current fiscal year from the fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 21-22, they had the roughly $800,000 increase.
Yes.
Right.
The other thing to consider too is this budget cycle, it actually goes from July 1st of 2020 to June 30th of 2021. So during the beginning of that, basically once that budget was approved, the one where we're seeing a surplus from, that budget was approved prior to knowing how big of an impact COVID was going to have. Going forward, the majority of the COVID impact was during that fiscal year, the one we're seeing this surplus from, which isn't the
Yes.
current fiscal year that
So
just
the
got
the
passed.
non-lapsing account that we've authorized, I think it's $2 million?
Yes.
Isn't that almost topped off now? How much margin do we have left in that?
It's pretty much topped off.
Okay,
There's a
so-
very small amount.
So all this money coming back is going to go back into the general fund?
Correct.
Anything that doesn't
Okay.
go into the non-lapsing account from the surplus does go back into the general
Okay.
fund.
Thank you.
Mr. Grandelsky.
Since we're talking about the non-lapsing account, they have to spend it down at some point to put more money in. Is there, like the town budget, you write purchase orders and maybe you don't spend the money, but it's allocated. Is that same process happen with the non-lapsing account? That they say, we're looking to spend this money, but it has to stay in that account? Or do you move it to another account for that particular project that it's going to be spent on?
So the non-lapsing account, just like all of our other funds, it is done on the accrual basis of accounting, which means when the project is approved, it is viewed as being appropriated and thereby spent. So we've allocated that out. So anything that they have not spent, if they've already approved it as of June 30th, then that comes off the amount that they have necessarily in the non-lapsing accounts. So when they're looking at their year end, we've already accounted for all those projects that they've already approved, even if they haven't spent the money yet. They may have approved it, they may have gotten contractors, contracted for it, but the actual project hasn't completed yet, so therefore the money hasn't been spent. Those are all accounted for as expended funds, as appropriated funds. So they would have flexibility to be able to add more funds into the non-lapsing. They didn't have any additional projects approved as of June 30th. So I know one of their last BOE meetings, they were talking about putting together a list of additional projects that they would potentially authorize within the next month or so, which they can absolutely do, but that won't impact the availability of of the level of non-lapsing as of June 30th. Because it's as of June 30th as to what has to be authorized, appropriated, or expended.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So
it would come off, it would reflect in the new fiscal year that we're in. So when they close out this current fiscal year, at the end, next July, August timeframe, when they close out next year, they will have expended or appropriated out some of that money from non-lapsing, but they didn't have any additional ones appropriated as of June 30th.
So getting back to what you're saying, so the money's going to go back into the general fund because we can't
Correct.
put money into the non-lapsing.
Right, it has a cap of $2 million. That's a hard
Right.
cap. We can't, the council doesn't have the ability to add any more into that, because that's the hard cap on it.
Mary, so this past budget cycle, we chose to take some money out of the general fund because we figured we had a healthy balance to kind of offset having a large tax increase. How much was it that we, kind of funded this next year out of the general fund?
900,000.
900,000? Okay.
And we did anticipate that there was going to be some level of turnback. So we anticipated that it was essentially reappropriating that part of that turnback into next year to be able to offset some of that.
I didn't think it was that high, though. I didn't think it was going to be that much.
Yeah, correct.
Maybe I
I think
missed-
that we were initially looking at smaller numbers at that time.
Well, this is good news. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? So we had a motion and a second. Back to the agenda item of approval of the system object based on adjusted budget for the Board of Education. If there is no further discussion, I will take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move on to item 13A, Town Manager's Report. Ms. Gloria, if you could.
Sure. So I, again, have given you the breakdowns with regards to COVID cases. I'll just point out that month over month from the September notice to my October report, hospitalizations have decreased by more than 100. So we did, I think we have seen that initial wave come through. We're starting to come back down. Will note, though, that in the map, the colored map that I gave everyone that shows the number of cases per 100,000 in population, Killingly is red, and I expect that it'll remain red for at least another few cycles. We've been averaging about 7 to 10 cases per day. The higher counts are typically over the weekends, is where we're really seeing that, and you can see that in the graph, the daily graph listing that I gave you. Those higher peaks of the 31 and the 22, those are a combination of 3 days worth of counts because they give us the account for Friday, but we don't receive another count until Monday evening. So it's really accumulation of 3 days. So I'll continue to report on that as we go along until we really start to see that curve back down again. I did include also the vaccination rates. So they did break out some of the age groups a little bit more than they had in the previous months. So they've added, they really split the lower age groups. So there's now an age group that's 12 to 17 and then another age group that's 18 to 24. But you can see that they, in general, month over month, we are seeing a higher vaccination. And I do apologize. I just saw that the first column is supposed to be as of 10/1. I just saw my typographical error. I apologize. So the first column is October. The second column is reflecting the prior months, just for comparison purposes. And just to transmit that the governor did sign Executive Order 14 that extended certain of the executive orders to February of February 15th of 2022. Must have been a really bad day that I was typing. And I did attach some of the details on that with regards to what those were that were extended. I did want to report that in the budgetary process, we were looking at adding a service for Call Before You Dig for our electrical that we have that's along Main Street. So all of the decorative lighting, there's electrical that goes with that that's underground. We have not had a locating service prior to. So we did contract with USIC Locating Services to provide that service to the town. We went live with that on September 27th. And we're hooked into the Call Before You Dig system. So that is completed, and we haven't had any tickets yet come in. But we now know that if a ticket were to be brought in, that we do have a qualified a service to do that. The Westfield Avenue and Community Center project, I gave you the list of public information meetings. So we had the first one this past Saturday. The next one is Wednesday, October 20th from 1 to 3 here at the Town Hall. That one I will also be doing on Facebook Live, and that will remain on our Facebook page. So if anybody is unable to attend any of our sessions, they can definitely go look there. The last one will be Thursday, October 21st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and that will be in the community center. That's going to be in the theater of the community center. I attached all the presentations slides for the council. It's pretty much the presentation that you received prior to. And these are also available on the town's website, and we've posted links to them on the Facebook page as well. And our various departments have also shared them out across social media platforms. I did include for you as a transmission just the Economic Development Commission is required to give the town council an annual report for economic development purposes. So you received, outside of my council report, a packet that is the annual report for the Economic Development Commission. So Jill really expounded upon the report to really give a pretty holistic view of our economic factors and the significant growth that Killingly had over this last year. So just to give that transmit that from the Economic Development Commission.
Thank you. I am glad to hear that you were actually going to have the community center project presentation on Facebook Live. That was actually something I was going to ask you if you could do. At this time, I'll open up to council. Mr. Grandelsky?
On the call before you dig, what is going to be the billing to call before you dig? Because sewers are exempt, sewer lines are exempt, but call before you dig is funded by the gas company, the electric company, the phone company, and the cable company. So
These fees are for us to pay the contractor to go out and do the actual.
but are they going to put the information to the call before you dig system?
As far as if there's, where the services are?
Well, when someone has to someone has to give the information to the call before you dig system, so that the call before you dig system, when someone comes in, they know to call these people.
Oh, yes, call before you dig. That's why we had the go live date. So we've connected with that system.
Okay, do we know what the fee is? There's a yearly fee associated with that too. Or is that not determined yet? That would be a separate fee from the locating company.
I will double check that with Dave, because I don't have that off the top of my head, and I don't want to give you wrong information, so.
Yeah, I don't know if we've gone through the whole.
I don't have it off the top of my head, Ed, so let me get that information and I'll get it to you.
I'm
I don't want to misspeak.
Oh, no, but I'm just looking at that. Somehow the call before, when someone calls in, they call the call before you dig numbers. And
Right.
that entity ends up calling these people
Yes.
to do a markup.
Yes, we actually get it, it's through the electronic notification. They don't call us, it's just an electronic
Right,
ticketing
right.
system that goes in. I will double check and I will get you that information, because I'm not pulling it off the top of my head.
Because that's a little different.
Yep, I'll check it.
I'm glad we're doing this. It's
Yep.
long overdue.
I do have one thing, Ms. Calorio. Something was brought up to my attention recently. The Tomato Festival, money that's raised during the Tomato Festival, Parks and Rec donated to a charity that serves primarily 3 towns outside of Killingly.
For Tomato Festival or for Bike Night?
Oh,
Bike
excuse me,
night.
for Bike Night.
So
I
there's
apologize.
actually a Bike Night committee, and it was actually divided between, it was only the admission fees, not what was fundraised from sponsors. That goes to offset the actual cost of Bike Night. the money at the gate is what is split between three entities, Killingly Parks and Rec, and Teague and Killingly Brook and Rotary. Those are the three entities that were selected by the Bike Night Committee. And the other two groups that were selected, it's because they are responsible to provide a high level of volunteers to run the actual night. Without those volunteers, Bike Night doesn't happen. And so it's been that grouping now for quite some time. It's been the same grouping for quite some time. All of the groups clearly are Killingly Parks and Rec is Killingly, but Killingly Brook and Rotary and Teague, they all are service Killingly as well. But they're the groups, the civic groups that have agreed and have provided high levels of volunteers for those nights. So they work to receive those funds.
Okay.
And that's how it's been. So the Bike Night Committee is the one that has been evaluating and selecting that.
Okay. All right. And the Bike Night Committee is set up by Parks and Rec, correct?
Tracy works to organizing that, yes. And I can get you it's a pretty diverse group, but I can get you what that group looks like.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Anything from you, either Mr. Cottula, Mr. Wood, or Ms. George?
No, I have no comments.
Mr. Wood, any comments?
No comments.
Ms. George, any comments?
Hello?
Yep,
There
there
you
you
are.
Oh, sorry. Nope, no comment.
Okay, thank you. Seeing how there's no further comments, we will move on in the agenda. The next item up is, actually, Ms. Colorio, I know you briefly discussed the Economic Development Commission annual report. Is that something you wanted to go over in further detail?
I was just transmitting that report to the town council. So if the council has any further questions or concerns, let me know. I can follow up with the Economic Development Commission.
Okay, thank you. Are there any current comments from council?
It's nice to see that despite COVID,
No, I have none.
we've been doing well economically. A lot of people.
I agree. Seeing no further comments, we'll move on to item 14, unfinished business for town council action, and we have none. Moving on further. Next item up is 15A, new business, consideration and action on a resolution to authorize an agreement between the town of Killingly and the Borough of Danielson for information technology services. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
Patty George, I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made by Ms. George, seconded by Ms. Wakefield. Ms. Colorio, if you could just go over this, please.
Sure, Mary Colorio. So the Borough of Danielson has been working to try and secure a network, IT network management for their IT infrastructure. They were struggling with finding a qualified one. Municipal infrastructure is a little bit different with regards to security than just a general business network. So they approached the town about piggybacking off of the town's IT consulting contract that we have with Novus Insight. The borough is a very small entity, so it's really hard for them to be able to garner cost-effective IT services. So the request was really, it's a pass-through. Novus adds them to Killingly's contract, but all charges associated with the borough are billed to the borough. So we'll receive the invoice, we'll pass that along to the borough will make payment. So there's no impact to Killingly whatsoever. We end up just being a pass-through entity to allow them to secure those, that IT network servicing. And it does, the agreement that we have in place does allow for the separation of that in the future. So if the town goes out for an RFP to look at different network service providers. We ultimately decide to go somewhere else, and the borough doesn't agree with that. They have the ability to separate out again if they so chose. So we're not integrating any of our networks. We're not integrating any of our actual equipment or anything like that. It's really just to piggyback on that, that IT service contract. And the agreement was reviewed by legal team. And the Borough of Danielson has approved
Has
it
approved.
at their level. They approved it at their borough meeting, so it's to the council now for consideration.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to item 15D, consideration and action on a resolution. Excuse me. We'll move on to item 15B, consideration and action on a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with the Board of Education regarding the management of space, allocation of costs, and maintenance of 79 Westfield Avenue. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
I'll make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
I believe the motion was made by Ms. Barclay and seconded by Mr. Lee. Oh, excuse me, it was made by Mr. Lee, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Ms. Gloria, if you could go over this, please.
Yes, so this is in response to looking at the utilization of Westfield Avenue, co-utilization of the Westfield Avenue property between the Board of Education and the town with the community center. The Board of Education had originally received this back in December of 2019 and had approved it pending the moving forward of that project. They reevaluated this again at their September 22nd meeting and approved, as you can see, the chairman of the Board of Ed has already signed the draft that you have before you. They approved this MOU. So this really establishes the general, it transitions the building to the town for overall maintenance, but it does separate out the areas that the Board of Education is going to be responsible for maintenance and for costs associated. We would be splitting all common utilities like electric, heat, all of that based on square footage of these designated spaces. So we've used the floor plan that has been proposed in the capital project for distinguishing what that is. And then the only shared space really is the gymnasium, and that would be, cleaning and such would be based on use and demand between the parties as to who is managing that. So overall, we, feel that this is a really fair and just division of costs and maintenance for the property, should the capital project proceed.
Thank you. Just for a point of clarification, if the project doesn't go forward, will this MOU still stand, or will the building remain
Board of Ed?
Board of Ed?
If you note at the end of the resolution, the last sentence of the resolution says this memorandum of understanding is contingent on the town's approval of the capital project relocating the community center to said premise. So it is contingent upon the capital project's ultimate approval.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
So I take it if that does not get approved, there'll be a different MOA?
We wouldn't proceed with an MOU. It would remain in the Board of Education's ultimate purview as one of their buildings. And the town would have to determine what their next steps are.
And presently, they maintain the field?
Correct. Presently, they maintain the full facility except for the tennis courts. They did turn the tennis court areas over to the town this past summer. We are utilizing, we do have a pickleball court set up there. We are looking to convert ones to basketball. So we do have a small piece that they did revert back over to the town.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 15C. Consideration and action on a resolution approving verbiage on signs to be displayed at both polling locations on Election Day, notifying electors of the location of the November 16, 2021 capital project referendum. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Patty George, I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made by Ms. Wakefield, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Patty, I apologize, there is a delay when you're signed in
Oh, that's
remote.
okay.
Ms. Caloria, if you could just go over this, please.
The town council last meeting, when you were setting the the public hearing and special town meeting for the capital project and the adjourned referendum vote, the council had requested that I check into seeing if there was a way to put a sign at both polling locations on Election Day, just notifying the electors that the vote on the 16th was going to be at the library in the community room. So I had to bring that before our legal counsel. Our bond attorney was the one that had to review that to make sure that we would be able to do that. So based on her recommendation, the town council needs to approve any signs, any verbiage for the sign that would be at the polling location. So this is the recommended verbiage that I received from our bond attorney that we could put up at both polling locations to notify the electorate that there is a capital project referendum on the 16th and the location of that, and that there's absentee ballots would be available after November 10th, on or after November 10th.
Thank you. Is there any way we could have put anything on the sign where it said community center project, so that way?
Nope, her recommendation was capital project referendum. I will stick with what our bond attorney has recommended.
Thank you. I do have one question. If this is approved, is this a sign that you could have when you're doing the presentations to the public, these next two that you have going on? So that way it could be outside the facility you're at, so that way people are walking by the sign, just to add to letting people know this is when the vote would be.
Yeah, so I actually, instead of utilizing this, I do have the slide that is within the slide deck for the public presentations that show the dates. And we have a bulletin board type sign that we would be putting out in the easels with those dates hanging below it.
Okay.
So anybody attending the presentations would be able to see that and see the important dates that are there, and it does include the locations. So we already have those signs ready to go.
Okay.
This would be for at the actual,
At the polling
Polling
locations
locations,
for
yes.
the municipal elections.
yes.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from council?
Mary, I have a question.
Sure.
Are there going to be any ads like Turnpike Buy or anything like that for this referendum?
No, so the only we did do an advertisement in the, as required per the bond attorney, we did an advertisement in the Villager that had the full ordinance listed in it. You can't, because of advocacy restrictions, you can't put in additional advertisements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
One abstention, Mr. Grandelski. Motion carries. We'll now move on to item 15D, consideration and action on a resolution to adjust the town manager's fiscal year 2021-22 compensation. Item summary, the town council reviewed the performance of the town manager during the regular town council meeting on October 5th, 2021. This item was developed from discussions following the performance evaluation. Fiscal summary, this item proposed to increase the town manager's compensation by 2.25%, or $3,335.91 per annum, and to transfer said amount from the contingent account to the town manager's budget, personnel services, and employee benefit accounts. Ms. Gloria, would you like to speak on this?
This is just in response to the review that I received last week. I will note that in the resolution, I did leave the effective date blank. I will leave that to the council to determine at what date that, if this does move forward, the date in which it becomes effective. So that is a blank that the council needs to fill in. The 2.25 is the increase that all the other staff did receive as well. So I appreciate your consideration on this.
Thank you. In previous year, I believe your increase was the same as what the rest of the town staff was as well.
Correct.
Thank you.
And as with all staff, it is budgeted for within the contingency line item of our budget annually. We budget all non-union and any negotiating portions within the contingency account. So it's not an unbudgeted.
Thank you. I will open up for comments from council.
I have a comment. I saw this in the Norwich Bulletin the other day. The 2.25% kind of took me aback because nobody talked to me about a number. I thought we would have that discussion in the council and come up with, a recommendation. So I'd like to know, how did that information get it to this agenda item with a number, a percentage in here?
That was me.
That was
So
you.
I put it together as a standard package. This is kind of how we standardly put it together every year for the town manager. It's historically how the town council and the town manager have managed this situation. We've usually, the town manager drafts. It comes before the council. You're welcome to adjust and modify and change that in any direction you so choose. I believe the Norwich Bulletin article was pulling the information off of the agenda, which is where that number came from. So that was completely, I put that number in based on this non-union wage increases and the union wage increases that all the other staff received. So that was completely mine. The council as a whole or individually has not discussed that at all. That was
Okay.
if you will, a request on my part.
I will say I feel the 2.25 is a fair increase, especially considering that's what the other town staff received. I know in the previous year, we did make it retroactive to July 1st. I don't feel it would be fair to the town manager that she waits for her raise in a sense and doesn't get it. I know in the past, like I said, last year, and I believe it's happened other years prior as well, where the council, when they have approved increases in town manager's salary, it's always made retroactive to the beginning of that fiscal year, which would be July 1st. Are there any other comments?
I have another comment.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll let Mr. Cottula go first.
Okay, appreciate it. I would render a motion to increase that percentage to 2.50%, retroactive back to July 1st.
So there's a motion to amend the motion on the table. So the original motion was the 2.25% increase, and Mr. Cottula has made a motion to amend that to a 2.5% increase. Retroactive to July 1st. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
No.
It has been seconded by Ms. Wakefield. I will open up for discussion.
I had comments before. I wish we had allowed me to make my comments before we put a motion on the floor, but I'll take this opportunity to make my comment. There's been some discussion in the forum where basically the
The
Republicans...
caucus, the
The
Republican
caucus, the
caucus.
Republican caucus. And I found that many people didn't have a really good understanding about executive compensation. Most people come from their own experience, which is either hourly or union, and executives is different. My experience from Electric Boat, being down there 30 years, 20 years was in management of salaried professionals. And it's a little bit different when you're talking about salaried personnel and executives in particular, because they are required to work pretty autonomously, and they have their basic work schedule is fluid. They are expected to put in whatever it takes to get the job done. It's not the same as what most people come from their work experience. So there's quite a bit of disagreement or discussion on how that should be handled, because Mary is not the typical employee that the town employs. She is the boss of all of these. She runs the town basically, with us providing the oversight. So executive compensation, I would like to have seen, well, there's two parts. When you talk about executive compensation, it's performance, and then there's salary grade penetration. And a lot of times there's a published pay scale, but sometimes there is not. And if there's a public pay scale, you could have somebody that is highly penetrated into their pay grade and be a very high performer, and maybe they don't even get the average raise because they're already close to being topped out. Or if there isn't a published pay scale, and I don't believe we have one, typically you go out and you find out what the market is. Because we all understand that if you want to have a well-run organization, you got to retain, the best people. And the way you do them is fairly evaluate them, but then also fairly compensate them. So I would like to know what other managers of like-sized towns and responsibilities are getting, paid for a salary, to see if we're being competitive. Otherwise, we spitball out a number, 2.25, 3%, whatever it is, and then we end up at some point, maybe not this year because circumstances, but you tend to lose good people. So if you have somebody who's really good for the town, you want to make sure you retain them. Also, you don't want to overpay people. You want to know what's fair. So I believe we spoke on that a little bit, and you were going to do a little bit of research. You told me you did a little bit of research, and because I was thinking, based upon performance, that her performance was above average, better than what we would normally expect from the run-of-the-mill manager. So I was expecting something like a 3% increase, something that was commensurate with the performance that she has shown this past year as an executive. However, there's still people who want to reflect it back to whatever the union people got, and I just don't think that's right. I would rather see us to take a look at what other managers in the area are getting and fairly compensate Mary with a pay raise commensurate with her performance. That was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I will speak to that a little bit. I did some research. First of all, the town council, town manager form of government isn't the most common in the state of Connecticut. So I tried to find comparable towns. The one I found that was closest was Plainville. As far as population, their population is about the same as Killenly. Their annual budget is about the same as Killenly. I looked at what their town manager was making, what his salary was, and the other thing I factored in was per capita income, because I didn't want to compare Killenly to a town whose per capita income is extremely higher than ours. So what I did was I took and looked at the per capita income. Now, if you look at the difference between Killenly's per capita income, which is much lower, it's lower than Plainville's by, I believe it was about 6%. if you reflect the per capita income into what the town manager's salary is, it comes to 148,000, which I believe is what Ms. Calorio is at right now, which to me, once I found that comparison, at that point, you're comparing apples to apples. So her salary, her current salary is in line with what I found. Looking at other towns, there weren't many other towns that were truly comparable, looking at population size, looking at town budget size. I did look at Avon, but their budget's 101 million. So when you have a town budget that high, and their per capita income was substantially different as well. So I tried to keep it comparable. And like I said, Ms. Calorio's salary right now is right in line with the one town I found that was most comparable.
Okay, so that's assuming apples to apples, that performance of that manager, of that town is the same as the performance of our manager in our town. I know we've had some significant improvements in the way the town's been run. Our turnover rate is very low. I think jumping through hoops and getting this AMS school program up, jumping through that hoop to get the funds to get that thing off the ground, which was an extraordinary effort. And I just think this past year, as we discussed last month, the performance has been very good. I would have made the recommendation to increase this to a 3% increase. It's not even, I don't think that's even in line with what we would expect for inflation this year. From what I've seen, that would have been my recommendation, but that's not what's on the floor. So, if you want to take a vote on the floor, I will abstain with the prognosis of recommending.
And I'd be more than happy to withdraw my second of Mr. Catula's motion. I'll withdraw my second. You made a very good point, and Mary's really gone over and above and probably been one of the best managers we've had in a long time.
Jason, can I make a comment?
Yes, Ms. George.
I'm in line with Ernie, and when you consider the responsibilities that Mary has compared to the rest of her staff, you also have to look at, one, she does an exceptional job, and two, you have to look at risk versus reward. Everything is on her shoulders. She is the voice of the community, and she's kept everything in line. Like, she does not need to be micromanaged. She does a wonderful job, and I think 3% is where I would be, absolutely.
I will actually ask Ms. Calorio what her opinion is on, do you feel there would be any kind of animosity among town staff if your increase was higher than the rest of the staff? I know this is pure speculation.
Very unexpected. I will say that, very unexpected. I don't think that there'd be necessarily animosity from my staff. I have a very supportive staff. For me right now, it's just unexpected to consider more than what the rest of the staff has received. But I appreciate the feedback and the information. It is good to know that your efforts don't go unnoticed.
The other question I would have is, if it were to be a 3% raise, do you think that would possibly have any impact on any other contract negotiations with other staff?
That's always a possibility. So, and that's one of the reasons why I think we've always tried to maintain close to percentage-wise what the union folks were making. We don't look at negotiations. We have 2 contracts coming up in the spring, but the dollar impact is substantially smaller than if the union collectively were to receive rates as high as that. So you balance economics as well. What's the economic impact of that overall when you're looking at a large group versus a single individual? But I'm sure it would be part of the conversation.
Thank you. While I'm not saying that Ms. Calorio doesn't deserve a 3% raise, she does a phenomenal amount of work for this town. The thing we always have to consider is ripple effects and possible impacts down the road with other negotiations, where we could be looking at a minimal increase by going from 2.25 to 2.5 or to 3 at this stage in the game, but going forward with further negotiations, we may be looking at a substantial impact to taxpayers and having to give the unions some leverage, if you want to say, as far as their contract negotiations, seeking higher raises for themselves next year. So at this point,
Jason, may I speak?
yes.
You're comparing apples to oranges. 100%. Mary's position is extremely different than hourly salary. As was stated, it's one position. The impact of her 3% increase should not be a negotiating tool for the unions. And if it is, then you push back on the unions.
Thank you.
You know, it's, I got a comment.
Mr. Lee.
At the end of my career at Electric Boat, I was a staff engineer, so I dealt with the VPs a lot. Those guys, their work-life balance is not really the same when you get to the executive level. On a calm day, it can be, but when the shit hits the fan, you know that person's going in, and they're not getting extra compensation for it. They have to do it. It's not the same. It's not the same. An executive, even a town manager or CEO or whatever, it's just not the same. So I think that Mary does a very good job for this town. I think she ought to be compensated accordingly. That's not, we're not talking huge money here, a 3%. In fact, it won't even compensate for what I think inflation's gonna be this past year. But you know what? I would make a motion, well, right now we have a motion on the table. It hasn't been seconded, right? I would like to make a motion to,
I believe whoever made the,
Kevin asked.
Kevin would have to rescind his initial motion to modify the motion that's on the table.
Yes, I'll rescind my motion for an increase of 2.5%.
then I
Okay,
would like
so-
to make a motion
Okay.
to increase this to 3%. That's the motion I'd like to put on the table.
I'll second that.
So there's a motion on the table to increase the town manager's salary by 3%. Motion has been made by Mr. Lee, seconded by Ms. George. I will open up for discussion.
If I may, I just want to, for purposes of the resolution, just to put your dollar figures
Dollar
in
figure.
place. 3% is $4,448, and the contingency number would have to go to 5,200. I'm looking at my finance director for verification that I've done a calculation correctly. $5,200? Yeah. Just so as you're doing your final discussions, I want to make sure that the numbers are reflected there.
All right. Now, can you give me those numbers? Now, the not to exceed. That's
5,200.
And the total value would be 100.
152, 710, 38.
4448 is even?
And
Yeah.
it was 44.48 for the yearly increase, or the,
Yes.
and 44.48 even? Or was it 44.48?
Flat.
Okay.
4,448.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the motion on the floor right now, we're actually voting on modifying the initial motion. So the modification would bring the town manager salary increase to $4,448, to $152,710.38 per annum. And the authorized to transfer would not exceed $5,200. Then there was no effective date given during the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask that if that was going to be retroactive back to July 1 of this year.
We would then again have to,
Well, Ernie can
Second.
ask Ernie if he wants to put that in his motion.
Yeah. I'd like to amend my my
Yes, I would
motion.
like to have that retro back to July 1.
I would like to put a date in there. Don't we do this every year, 1 July? And it should be 1 July. So I'm going to make the motion that we put the date 1 July, effective 1 July 2021 in the motion.
so I
second that.
believe we have to rescind the second.
No.
Modify, no?
No, as long as your second agrees,
Yeah.
Okay.
then you're fine.
That's fine. I agree.
Yep,
Okay.
you're good.
So the last adjustment to the motion would be that it would be effective July 1st, 2021. Is there any further discussion on the amendment to the initial motion? Seeing none. Right now, we will vote on the motion, the amendment to the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No. Mr. Wood? And myself. Abstentions? Seeing none, the amendment to the motion passes. So now the motion on the floor is, be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that the town manager be granted an increase in salary of $4,448 pursuant to an evaluation of performance to the $152,710.38 per annum, effective July 1st, 2021. Be it further resolved that the town manager is herein authorized to transfer an amount not to exceed $3,600 to the town
$5,200.
not to exceed $5,200 to the town manager budget, personnel services, and employee benefit accounts. Is there any discussion? I will say, my opposition to the modification was not based on the town manager's performance. I believe the town manager does a phenomenal job. My reason for opposition is twofold. One being, a lot of taxpayers are still facing diminished incomes due to COVID, are out of jobs due to COVID. Business owners are still suffering from impacts of COVID. And the amount that the town manager brought forward, she indicated she had approved of that amount. That wasn't an amount that the 2.25 was not an amount that the council had thrown out. And also the fact that there is the possibility that the other unions can use this as leverage in their negotiations. Not saying they definitely will, but it is a possibility. Those are my reasons for voting against this. Voting against the amendment to the motion. Is there any further comment?
Mr. Chairman, if I could speak.
Hang on one second, Mr. Cottula, we're looking into something.
I believe you need to have a motion
Motion,
on the
okay.
floor for to now, in a second, to take up the item as amended.
Okay, thank you. I did read off the motion as amended, but I did not receive someone to make a motion and a second to the amended motion that passed and is now the motion that's on the table.
It's very confusing sometimes, but I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Lee, seconded by Ms. George. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I could speak.
Go ahead, Mr. Wood.
So I agree with you. I mean, I'm not going to stand in the way of our town manager actually receiving a raise, but I think the points that you had raised are valid. Much as I greatly appreciate Mary and the great work she does, by no means am I ever against giving her a raise or any of our town employees, because as I often say, much as I want to speak against the foolishness of some aspects of government, I got to say the town of Killingly does a great job, and so that's why I'm a big fan of rewarding those, but rewarding our employees there, the employees of the town. I think they do a great job. I can never speak enough good about them, including our town manager. But I consider too our budgets and what's been budgeted, what's been approved, what was planned for, things like that. And so that was part of my opposition, along with some of the other points that you had brought up as well.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
I have a comment. Okay. I've been here 2 years. I think most people know that I'm a fiscal conservative. I don't throw out money. I like to save money, look at any cutting corners. But there's a time where you spend money wisely. And the salary for an exemplary town manager is someplace where that's a good investment. That way somebody doesn't come along sometime in the not too distant future and takes our town manager. I mean, we've lost people from school boards and from the school administration. You can lose people. When you have someone good, you make sure you compensate them well, so you keep your organization running well. So I think that's a fair. 3% is fair. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Right.
Opposed? No. Abstentions? Motion carries. At this time, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item up is council member reports and comments. We will start with Mr. Cottula.
Hello. Saturday morning, the Permanent Building Committee will be meeting to interview 4 firms for the construction manager at risk on the KMS school project. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
No report.
Ms. George.
Planning and Zoning has a public hearing on October 18th to go over some zone changes. The Frito-Lay expansion project, there was a letter put out that was supposed to be discussed October 18th. The change, they want to move from 50 feet to 85, but they want to move that to November 15th. So that'll be a separate meeting. Ag Commission, the Tomato Festival was a huge success. The Killingly Community Gardens had a great harvest this year, and they are meeting tomorrow night.
Mr. Grandelsky.
No report.
Mr. Lee.
I have no report.
Ms. Wakefield.
Mayor's no report, what didn't we?
Ms. Barclay.
The Housing Authority meeting was canceled. They didn't have a quorum in the historic district. The Preservation Council, the grant for the pamphlets were finally approved. And for October's meeting, they would like to invite the Director of Planning and Development and Zoning Enforcement Officer to go over a certificate of appropriateness, and this would be for the community or the individuals that live in the historic district to make sure that anything that they do to the outside of their homes fits the historic district, and maybe looking to see if there would be any sort of tax incentives. That's it.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to item 17, executive session. There is nothing for executive session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make that motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made by Mr. Lee, seconded by Mr. Grandelski. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? This meeting is adjourned.